Good morning. It is October 8th. It's Wednesday morning, and I am starting my day. I have to go to run some errands, pick up some stuff at the store. Apparently, I'm out of soap. Like I said, I go to the store in increments. I feel as though that's the best method for me, so that gives me the time to go out of the house, and also allows me to work with the income that I have. No, I understand people talk about me having a bunch of stuff. They see me out all the time. I don't get all my groceries in one fell swoop. Okay, this gives me the flexibility to go out of the house instead of like in increments when I need to. Okay. So anyway, yeah, I was just amazed at how monitored I was, and yeah, I wasn't really comfortable. Something I keep getting these intuitive messages, something about people from my past. I'm doing the best I can to pick up from where I got left off. Okay, and I know that I was unfortunately a part of a network that was not consensual, and it was very frustrating because people were blocking me, creating problems for me. And they created so many problems for me in 2023. Yeah. 2023, they ended up ruining my credit. And like I said, it's important to make this very clear. I have not inquired on my credit report, but I expect my credit to be exactly the way it should be. Okay. And I understand I was not working. They prevented me from working. All these sort of issues. It's like these people, when people struggle with financial hardships, oftentimes it is wired in the system. You have people who are working behind the scenes creating these sort of financial hardships for you. Okay, I expect my credit card balances from Synchrony Bank. I'm surprised that Synchrony Bank would do something like this, but I do believe that Synchrony Bank was a part of the Christian groups. Okay, Christians have been doing all kinds of underground crimes for a very long time and thinking that they were justified in doing it. This is not in any way, Christ-like. Let me shut this window. I have the landscapers and stuff out there. Anyway, so, I don't like to complain about stuff or bring things up, but you have to understand, like, these people literally left me in a uh, situation to where it's like, okay, now how do I proceed? How do I pick up? And how do I navigate? How do I move? Because when you're a targeted individual, you know the kind of drama that gets caused. Okay, they want to play games, they want to play sides, and all this other stuff. So it's like you want to be effective, but you don't know exactly who to reach out to. You don't know how that's all going to work. You don't know if these people are triggered, mind controlled, wanting to play some sort of sick game or whatever. The toxicity, that these people create because of, we're talking. Okay, I'm going to talk about spirituality and why there was such a high level of toxicity is because the churches were making this a spiritual issue. They were brainwashing people to have, mental illness. I would say the majority of mental illness that's caused here on this earth is created by Christianity. And I know that I've seen it played out with my oldest sister. And I don't know, and I'm not okay. What puzzles me is that I know that not just Christianity, a lot of religions, okay, have persecuted me in this issue, and but yet rip things off for me, right? And it's funny because people are so beyond brainwashed that they will persecute me for stuff, but meanwhile be doing the same things. Just like I don't recall getting any persecution from Stella McCartney, like I mentioned her in my newsletter. Okay, I don't recall that, but do I believe that she was perfectly? I mean, somebody put a bug in her ear to not have any sort of communication with me at one time. I do believe that that's the case. Okay, why? Because this was a part of the propaganda. Okay, so why should I be snubbed by Stella McCartney for wearing clothes if she's a designer? This is what I'm saying is like, the mind control of these people and the thick level of confusion and fog that it creates in people's minds. Like I said, growing up with my sister Tanya, I have seen the unbelievable kinds of brainwashing, the mind control tactics played out on my sister Tanya. My sister Tanya, even when I was like in grade school, okay, in grade school, I could identify that something was seriously wrong with my sister Tanya. Okay. And, as I got in junior high, I was able to identify her mental illness that was directly related to her religious views. Okay. So I will say that, it's been obvious to me that the demonic forces have been working inside of the churches for a very, very long time. Okay. And see, the biggest deception is that people have this image in their minds that religion can do no wrong, as if it's so holy that it cannot, nothing could penetrate it, like, but we have to understand that religion was established by man, meaning that men are capable of creating sin. Okay. And they're capable of becoming envious, they're capable of getting, competitive, they're capable of recruiting others, they're capable of spreading it. And I usually refer to this sort of stuff as social cancers. And you could see a social cancer could be in any pretty much environment. And one of the reasons why I say social cancer is because, like, when we think about cancer, okay, it can like fester inside of a person's body. It could formulate in one part of the body, and then all of a sudden it gets into the lymph nodes and it spreads, like, all throughout the body. The same thing, okay, when you have a negative force within a group dynamic and how it can fester. Okay. So yeah, I'm very grateful that I did, study religion when I was younger, took an interest in it. But see, this is all indicative of somebody who would be, what they call a chosen one. Okay. And what I honestly believe in within these churches is that these churches are very much controlled by, these sort of operations that shouldn't be playing any sort of active role in the church. You know what I mean? And it just became very toxic. So anyway, the intuitive messages that I got is okay. I got a trike. My son bought me a tricycle. Okay, and I want to be very clear about the trike. I've only rode the trike maybe one time, and I'm going to be riding it more in the future. Okay, this trike is meant for my number one recreational activity when I go up to the park, and also when I run errands. Okay, yes, everybody knows I'm looking for work. I have no intentions of using my trike at work. Okay, I have no intentions of driving my trike at work or anything like that, because I have to sit here and like shut down rumors. Now, I know that it is the responsibility of these so called Christians because they put me out of work and they deliberately ruined my credit. They deliberately ruined my credit. Okay. Yes, Terry Collins and her self righteous Jehovah's Witness losers all got together and created this problem. Okay. Which they had no right to. Okay. What they were was there was a group of women who were jealous of me being able to make extra purchases, like I'd go get my groceries, right? And then, I was furnishing my apartment. Anytime I move into a new place, I'm going to furnish it. So you're going to see me going in and out, buying new things. Usually they're basic things like hand towels. There's times where I have to replace dishes that might have gotten broken within the transition. So I bought some new dishes and stuff like that. And Terry Collins, just because you are jealous of somebody does not mean that you have the right to mingle in their finances. Something about, okay, the intuitive message I'm getting is that most people do realize that, yes, Christianity, and I'm not saying that, God or the idea of God or having is about wrong, but I do believe a lot of people are waking up to how the institutionalized Christianity has become absolutely demonic. Okay, and so yeah, but to clarify the issue of my tricycle is for my personal life. It is not going to be used for anything business related. Okay, so people are going to wonder, how are you planning to get to work? Okay, I would probably most likely Uber to work. Okay, and then in between Ubering and a bus drive. Okay, that's pretty much how a lot of people actually are getting by at this point. Okay, but yes, it was deliberate. And Terry Collins is a wicked person. I will say this for the rest of my life. She is a wicked individual. Okay, regardless of her so-called, mind control or whatever. I know, like I said, you can only use the mind control thing up to a certain level. Okay, and so this is one of the reasons why I have decided to pull back from people. I have decided to be very reserved with people because people have been socially conditioned for a very long time. And even though they're aware of it, that is not going to immediately change the little, idiosyncrasies and the small things that come through their mind on a daily basis that they are used to having. Okay, so it's in my best interest. Like I said, I'm polite. I'm doing what I need to do, but Maria is focused on her stuff. and that's the right way of handling things. Okay. So anyway, yes, I am going to be single for the rest of my life. It is stupid to think that I would be able to pair with a human being. Okay. Why? Because number one, I would say that Christianity has proven that it is a very toxic religion. It is a very toxic religion, and a lot of times they formulate relationships for the purpose of infiltration, information gathering, sabotage, mental abuse, physical abuse, whatever. Okay, these Christian groups that have manipulated relationships with a lot of people that don't realize that their relationships have been manipulated. They call these stuff kingdom spouses. It's actually called kingdom nightmare. Okay. But anyway, and this goes for your friends and everyone else. People that came into my life, I now understand were orchestrated. You know what I mean? Like Amanda was probably orchestrated. I probably knew Amanda in a past life. You know what I mean? Some of these people that I went to school with in high school, or well, I went to from high school to elementary, all of those years. Okay, all those kids that I knew could very well have been a part of C.B. Berganza's life at one time. You know what I mean? This is one of the reasons why, I resent the fact that people say, "Oh, you took on this assignment." No, these so-called what do you call it? Past life resets, or reincarnating clones and stuff like that are highly uh, discussed among certain church officials, like the LDS Church, and how they orchestrate it with government officials at that time doing a lot of illegal work. This is one of the reasons why I ended up back in Lancaster. Okay, they manipulate where you're going to go. They find this very interesting, so they put me right back in Lancaster as Maria Gordon when I was a kid. This is all on their end. So I highly resent it when people say, "Oh yeah, you came back on this world because blah blah blah." No, I didn't. I would have never come back. I would have never come back. Trust me on that. Okay, I really do believe that this world is so filthy and vile. You know what I mean? Like I said, the only thing I enjoy on the earth is its natural resources. I do not enjoy the bullshit that goes on in this world. Okay, so yes, I am going to be single, and it's for my own good. It's for my own protection. No, I do not sit here and worry about, oh, I wish I had someone. I don't believe in any of that. Okay, do I believe that people could show affection to each other? Yes. Okay, but do I understand that there's a lot of sick, psychological, destroyed people in this world waiting to attack, or something's wrong with them? Absolutely. So right there, I am not somebody who's fixated on that. I'm concerned about my safety. My safety, my well-being, my protection, my peace of mind is always going to supersede some illusional, daydream of some sort of romance. Okay, so get off of it. Okay. The other message I'm getting is something about certain spiritual places would be ideal to add to my newsletter list. Okay, now I know that some of these groups, religious groups, specifically, I believe Jehovah's Witnesses, were helping themselves to my stuff. Okay, and they were willing. I mean, these whatever. Okay, like I said, the whole issue with Jehovah's Witnesses, I'm disappointed in them. Okay, I'm very disappointed in Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, and I would say because they contradicted their own religious beliefs, as well as they showed a certain form of selfishness. Okay, and well, like I said, I understand when it comes to Jehovah's Witnesses, because I remember, not like having a deep association, but I would say my closest association was with Amanda, and of course that gave me the opportunity to get to kind of know other Jehovah's Witnesses. And I'm going to tell you, I've studied them. A lot of these people have a lot of repressed desires. You know what I mean? And not bad desires, but that desires that are not really supported by their congregations. For example, okay, when I was growing up, I was studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, and I was seriously considering becoming a Jehovah's Witness. Okay, and like I said, I felt like I wanted to serve God, so I was looking first to organize religion. So, I remember they were talking very bad about any desire to have a higher education. Like if you wanted a higher education, you were worldly. You shouldn't even be thinking about that sort of stuff. Armageddon was coming soon, and you need to be focused on blah 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 blah. And don't get me wrong, it's like okay, and I understand. I think most people at this point, if you're an adult, you now understand that you should not put 100% of your life force into your job. You know how disappointed you're going to get if you sit here and think that that's going to do anything for you. But the reality is you have to have skills to get into the workforce, okay? So I felt as though a lot of times Jehovah's Witnesses were causing all kinds of chaos and problems unnecessarily. Now, apparently, they have changed their view on going to college, because when I talked to Amanda, last time I talked to Amanda, okay, I think it was like in 2003 or something, 2002 or something. She said that she was going up to the Antelope Valley College, and I was like, oh, okay, well, good for you, Amanda. I was glad for her. Okay, but I want to make it clear, the reason why I distanced myself from Amanda was because I knew my time with Jehovah's Witnesses was over, and I didn't want anything to do with it. Okay, and it wasn't because I was wanted to not have her in my life. I just knew that Amanda was very attached to her religion. Okay, and I was being showing respect to her. I understood that this was a path that she wanted to go, and I understood that I needed to have my path, because I don't agree with the tight clamp and hold and the mental illness. I knew Amanda had mental illness, okay, and I know that she's expressed that many times to me, okay, in many ways. But I knew that Amanda was, Jehovah's Witnesses do not encourage, the intermingling with people who are not of their faith. So I respected that. And I kept thinking, okay, eventually the time, because I was living in Bakersfield, Amanda was living in either Lancaster or Los Angeles or something. I don't remember. But whatever the case is, I cared about her, but I cared about her from a distance. Okay. And I think I did the right thing. But see, I guess maybe I should have just outright told her, said, I don't want anything to do with Jehovah's Witnesses. You know what I mean? And I should have just formally told her, look, I care a lot about you, but you need to go on your journey yourself, because I do not want Jehovah's Witnesses coming around me. I do not want to be associated with them. I don't want to, whatever. You know what I mean? But I thought, whatever. I mean, I get disturbed by the entire thing of dealing with knowing that I'm a victim of cause stalking, and the multitude of it and the hypocrisy of it. And then when I see the hypocrisy of it, that immediately freaks me out, because I know that I was dealing with something very wicked. Very wicked. The whole interfaith thing, and it was just a cult, wanting to persecute somebody. And that, like, wow. And like I said, when I realized I was a victim of gang stalking, I understood that perhaps maybe my siblings were involved, maybe, the kids from AV. But the last person I would have ever suspected being a part of this would have been Terry Collins. You know why? Because I have always believed in what Jehovah's Witnesses. I had faith in their integrity. They said that they didn't involve themselves in worldly matters. I was like, cool. That means I don't got to worry about you. You're not going to sit here and stab me in the back. You have standards. Good, thank you. But now I'm like, my mind is completely shattered. The Intuitive message I'm getting right now is, yes, Christianity is a lie. Okay. So anyway, the intuitive messages I'm getting is, I had talked about my I even stopped talking to celebrities because I knew that they got sucked into this, right? And that was unfortunate, because it's like, I understand that, and I felt that was like too intrusive. It was like, to me, that was where the whole demonic thing came into it. It's like somebody wants to get into my psyche, to where they're crossing over into the things that I take for my pleasurable time. Like, my outside world, like when I come home, I don't want anything work related in my house. I'm adamant about it. Like, if I hate my job, I don't bring your pencils, your pens, your notebooks. I don't, none of it. Okay. If I had a car, anything like work related paperwork will stay in my car. I will not bring that nasty shit in my house. Okay. So for these people to sit here and dig into my personal life, bringing in my favorite singers and stuff, and then polluting their mind so that they could be a part of the harassment stuff, it was like, dude, you guys are just outright filthy demonic. But I understand that the whole cloning program, the whole cloning system is intertwined with the church. Why? Because we have this whole thing about the cloning, different groups of people cloning people from different groups, different backgrounds. Okay, so and now they have converted these people into singers, actors, politicians, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is how I'm intertwined with this group, as well as my biological mother being a celebrity. Okay, and I honestly can identify that Christianity, and I've said this before, this goes to show you how demonic Christianity is. Christianity um, is the most evil, wicked empire on the earth. And that, like I said, that doesn't mean that it can't transform and it can't improve itself. But there's a lot of things it would need to do in order for it to improve itself. Okay, and it is to me outright demonic. You know what I mean? And you can, and it's. I used to sit there, and I remember having a conversation with my sister Lisa, my adoptive sister Lisa. I used to say, I don't see how people can be fooled into following these religious people. I do not understand it because it seems so obvious to me. Like you could see in their faces. I can see it. Okay. But not just by going off of what you're seeing physically, in the contradictive behavior that they do. Okay. And I was like, I could never grasp my brain around it, how it couldn't be so obvious. Okay. But I resent the fact that Christianity uses force. You'll notice that they use force. And see, I was going to create a video about cause stalking. Okay, I was going to create a video about cause stalking for my next blast. I'm going to say blast because I'm still looking for work. Okay, I did have 2 job interviews this week, but I'm still continuing looking. Okay, and so I kept thinking, well, I want to introduce my work and then also let people know that I'm somebody who is interested in workplace education. This is what I do, okay? I mean, this is my true profession. I'm an occupational engineer, okay? But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to get hired to be a bookkeeper here, or I might process payables there, okay? But this is how I present myself. Whatever I'm doing, I am an occupational engineer. So I kept thinking, I think what the big topic of conversation is cause stalking. Okay, the intuitive message I'm getting right now is that all the death spells that I performed were indeed justified. They were all justified. Okay, I don't know. Like I said, I talked about how we deal with um, people who do not have the ability to, like, leaders who do not have the ability to lead people correctly. Okay, and the reason why they don't is because they default into us versus them type of stuff. Okay, like I said, if somebody really thought something was wrong with who I was, okay, and I know that they've sent Jehovah's Witnesses over here several times, but they would just offer me their watchtower away. If they were really that interested in my spiritual life, okay, they would have come up to me and said it, okay? I have come to understand my bloodline. My bloodline is angelic. I am an angel. I'm like basically an angel walking around, okay, in a human body. Okay, and this is why it was so hush hush. This is why it was such a big deal. You know what I mean? Among these, like, people that play these sort of games with the cloning facilities, as well as at the time back in the 1970s and late 60s, these people who got, I bet you even Nixon was involved in my coming over here and all this other stuff. It was all entertaining back in the day. Yeah, it was entertaining. It's like, oh, this is interesting. See how this person's going to live. It's fascinating to see somebody kind of repeat the things that they were, okay? But it's always been where these groups of people have, like when I'm talking about religion is sadly a lie, as well as the propagation of it. Like, the taking and stealing from my ideas and then acting as if they have the right to turn around and punish me for possessing the idea, giving them the idea. It is what it is it is nothing more than enacting of white supremacy. Be blaming somebody for being more superior than they are. Okay. And that's what I resent about this. You know what I mean? But at least I know, and I've articulated it, and they can't deny that this is the truth. Okay. So it's like, it's obvious that the churches, not just the what I call like Christian type churches, other offshoots of different churches or religious groups have stolen from C.B. Braganza, utilized his ideas all the way from other incarnations. So I get it. So anyway, going back to the celebrities, why I'm a little reluctant to connect with celebrities is because, I had dealt with being in a network. I dealt with being in a network, and I want to make it very clear that I am somebody who is looking for work by myself. Okay, I'm somebody who's looking for work by myself, and I want to make it clear because I don't want people sitting here thinking just because, like, for example, I am in communication with a celebrity and I might say hi to a person, I might be in a conversation with somebody. then people are sitting here, coming up with rumors, and then maybe this particular celebrity might be thinking that they're going to be my kingdom spouse, and then think that they're entitled to start stealing from me. And this is the reason why I'm very reluctant about communicating with the celebrities, because this is all it takes. This is all it takes when you deal with human trafficking and how desperate these people are to try to latch on or try to find some sort of justification as to why they feel entitled, even though they don't. Okay, but when you're dealing with a lot, I'm not trying to cut the celebrities down, but I've dealt with some pretty ignorant people where they think this. Okay, just like we have Bruce Collins' family thinking that they were married to me. I wasn't married to Bruce Collins. Okay. Anyway, so and I do care. I mean, and I'm fans of some of these celebrities, but what I mean. I have to be very careful. Also, people do realize that I do possess the divine truth. I do possess the divine truth. I operate in truth, and I live a very holy, I guess, yeah, holy existence. And this is what I've always wanted to do. When I was a child, I thought about being a nun and stuff like that, but I realized I'm fine on my own. Okay, something about people from my past, people knowing that I am at peace with all the religions. I was thinking about the cause stalking video, making a cause stalking video and sending it to different religious organizations within the community. I do believe that most people within this community have heard my word. They do understand that I have no interest in being cloned again. Do I believe the cloning process was originally started for evil purposes? Yes, I do. I do believe that. Okay, but that does not necessarily mean that it cannot be made into something good. Like I said, it all depends on the kind of quality of life that they are able to give the clones. Are these clones actually living fully functional lives, or are they getting abused? Okay, I feel as though I was abused by the Collins family. And why did they feel abused? Why did they Collins feel justified in taking advantage of me? Why did they feel justified in taking advantage of me? You know what I mean? They were rotten people. They're evil people. Okay. I do believe it was the Collins that were the ones who were talking about me having an interest in white music. It's funny when I think about how evil white people have been to me. They should be they I guess it is kind of a wonder how I should even like their music. Why should I like anything from white people? But see, at the same time, it's like, to me, it's just a song. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be political. It's just it talks about emotions and or experiences or good or bad life. Yeah, good or bad life experience. It talks about losing people, loss, poverty. Sometimes it talks about the joys of experiencing wonderful things like the powers of the sunlight or whatever. It depends on how it's written and how it's expressed, and that's all it is to me. It's like to me, it's a form of poetic expression, regardless of whose mouth is coming from. Okay, so I feel as though Terry in the Collins family had, just like a lot of other white people, have always believed that because they are the biggest bullies, that means that they're the best. That's exactly what all I've ever seen from white people. I'm going to be honest with you. I've only seen them being bullies. Now, and this is what makes them seem great. But people from my past want me to know that I'm not going to be. They do now understand that the religions are fake, and they do acknowledge the fact that they had no right to sit here and behave the way that they did. Yes, I am indeed an angel. Of course, I'm going to be interested in things like the occult, because that's what angels do. Okay, as far as regardless of how you look at it, like I feel as though I know that Collins were extremely racist. Okay, and I do believe that the racist behavior from the white people come from a deep sense of shame, and it also comes from a deep sense of insecurity. Because I will tell you, like I said, I've never done anything out of my way to stand up against white people, to make an issue of it. But I did mention them in my newsletter, talking about trying to figure out, if their issue is biological. Are white people biologically evil? Or are they evil based off of some sort of external circumstance? Like, for example, is it church? Is it church that is making them evil? Or is it just in their blood that's making them evil? You know what I mean? That's something that needs to be seriously looked into. But yes, people, I get the intuitive message that people do remember me as somebody who was always interested in the occult. Okay, when I say the occult, like for example, there might be a TV show on, like for example, Dark Shadows. Why does the story of Dark Shadows interest me? Because on some level, I do think that there's a possibility of something similar like that. I'm putting the pieces together. Okay, Barnabas actually looks like he was chained into a coffin for over 200 years. Okay, that's not really the case. But could a clone of Barnabas come out, rolling out, and live among his current relatives? Absolutely. Okay, so these sort of like interesting topics were it. Okay, when I say interest in the occult, that's what I'm talking about. I never had an interest in let me do a bunch of death spells or let me do black magic spells. I'm jealous of so and so, so let me curse. I've never done anything like that. Okay, but what I've always been interested in is things that relate to me changing my mood, changing my space, changing my environment, changing that these sort of things that I rightfully have within my moral system. I do believe that these sort of things should be worked out through a form of morals. Okay. Now, I know that throughout the different centuries, there has been famous magicians, okay, such as Aleister Crowley from England, who was practicing his witchcraft in front of everybody, talking about his belief in the going so far to refer to himself as the beast, and no one was sitting here batting an eye. Okay. So, yes, I get it. I've dealt with racism, period. Period. Nothing else. Nothing else. Okay. Racism, okay, and sexism, but racism. Okay. And that's what it is because I am somebody who is, I outthink, and I outfunction and I outperform these white people. And I'm not saying it to brag, it just is the case. Okay. So in their mind, they feel entitled to say blah, 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 and then demand that I recognize them as superior. That's a joke. That's a joke. Okay. And like I said, I'm doing this in the most polite way I'm possibly, and I can do it. You know what I mean? Now, I don't know what these people thought. Did they think that I was some sort of Black Panther or something? I've never been associated with it. And these idiots should have known that. You know why? Because they probably studied my past lives knowing that I was a lone wolf. I don't need other people to recruit other people to solve my issues. I just state the facts. And those are the facts. Okay? I'm grateful to not be cloned again. Yes, something about Lancaster. Lancaster, I got the intuitive message this morning when I first woke up that Lancaster, California is, if I was to want to damn, condemn, and kill everybody in the city of Lancaster, I would be 100% justified in doing so. That place that I loved, okay, the terrain that I loved in Lancaster, like, the weird, creepy feeling that I would get in the evening and all this other stuff. But the people of the city of Lancaster do not have God's favor. And they also were the ones who were sitting here attacking me, joining forces with Terry. See, I was thinking about psychoanalyzing Terry Collins, as well as my mom, okay? Both of these women, what they do have in common is that they were basically housewives. Both of them basically lived, I would say solitary humdrum lives, okay? But what this issue gave them, okay, my mother started having more social contact. She had more social experiences, okay, as soon as they started persecuting me. When Terry Collins started persecuting me, suddenly she was fitting in. She had a face. She belonged. You know what I mean? And this gave her like, a sense of feeling a purpose is what it gave her. And the same thing with my mother, right? So these I'm going to call them ugly. It's not that they're physically ugly. They are ugly on the inside, and this is what makes them disgusting. Okay? They're disgusting because they are so lowly that they are willing to use other people to raise themselves up. Okay? I am an upstanding person. This is what people get upset about because I deal with evil people all the time, and they know that I would never resort to their garbage. They know that I wouldn't, right? And that's what frustrates them even more because they know that anything to do anything that resembles them in the slightest, okay, is garbage. Okay, something about the people from my past. Let me see what's going on with them. Okay, I am, like I said, I'm still looking for work, and like I said, work is no longer something that I am like excited about doing. You know what I mean? Why? Because I realize I've dealt with people. I'm going to work around people who were raised in the Christian faith. I'm going to deal with people who are probably, who've, been raised all their life to be hateful monsters. And I'm going to have to work with these people. The intuitive message I'm getting is yes, it makes sense that I would like white music. It's stupid to think that. Okay, that obviously is a part of people's brainwashing. Okay, when you think about the radio stations when you were growing up, okay, seriously, think about the radio stations when you were growing up. I used to listen to Kiss FM. Kiss FM. My mom listened to Kiss FM. I don't know. And then when I would get in the car with my dad, we would listen to K Earth 101. Okay, when my dad would be out in the garage loading bullets, because he was a hunter, he would be listening to the country station. Okay, that's what he would be listening to. And I would remember the songs that would come on Kiss FM. And I remember, like I said, back in the 70s, they would play things like Donna Summers. They would play things like, Paul McCartney. And they would intertwine these people. And it just seems stupid, do white people want people of color to hate them? It's like, why should you end up liking their music, and then they end up getting upset and then want to make fun of you because you like their music? Do you want me to hate you? You want me to hate you? Gee, that makes no sense. You know what I mean? But anyway, when it comes to music, it is what it is. I think that's just really petty. But like I said, Terry felt like she had a sense of purpose that she never had before. Suddenly, people were paying attention to her, listening to her ideas, and she had some sort of significance, but she will never sit there and use me like that. Okay? The intuitive message I'm getting is that Terry actually wanted to be my friend. And see, this is what I'm saying about white people. Okay? White people have a different definition of what friends are. Okay? My friendship means that I have an agreement with you. Okay? I'm going to speak well of you, and I would think that you would speak well of me. I am not going to ever throw your name out in public to ever deal with any sort of, what do you call it? I would never disrespect someone that I would think of as my friend, or disrespect their name in the public sector, knowing what it could do. Okay, I am never going to put my needs. I'm going to understand and respect the desires and goals of what my so-called friend is. Why? Because if I had a friend, I would be a 100% friend. See, what Carrie Collins is and all these other people are, they're acquaintances to me. They're just simply people I know. Okay, I have never ever referred to her as my friend. Therefore, there is no soul contract or agreement for me to take her feelings into consideration, and vice versa. She had no right to be involved in my stuff. Okay, I remember Steve Murray. He's like, but Maria, I remember I was sitting here telling Steve Murray how wrong he was and how he needed to get out of my business. He was overstepping the line. Oh, but Maria, I thought we were friends. This man was sitting here being a part of a genocide program, and he's going to tell me he's my friend. And see, this is why I'm telling you, when it comes to white people, they do not have any idea of what a friend is. Okay? Their friendship is to lure you, deceive you, gather information from you so that they can turn around and use it against you. And that's exactly what they do. Okay, and I'm saying this with the utmost respect to white people. So white people have no reason to sit here and give me any guff. If I was to encounter a irate white person, I would know deep down inside the only person that they have to blame is themselves. That is the only person that they have to blame, themselves. Okay, because like I said, I was sitting here minding my own business in my own lane. I never interfered with anyone. And if somebody said, well, you do this, and this, because I have the right to. I have the right to not believe in your religion. Why would I propagate your religion? Why would I propagate a religion that sits here and causes all of these problems that I can obviously see? Of course, I would not respect your religion, okay? And I have the right to not be a part of your religion. I do not have the right to desecrate your religion. I've never thrown a stone in any of your churches. I've never done anything, okay? So I'm the only one who knows how to handle things correctly. Now, I don't know what's going on with the people from my past. I have not communicated with them. I would not want to communicate with them either. And, and some of these people might sincerely be, I don't see how you can sincerely be sorry. It's been too long. It went too long. Okay. Like, why your apology means nothing now, to like 12 years down the road after leaving Murray Family Farms, it would simply go in one ear and out the other. Okay, the only reason why there's any, oh, I'm so sorry, is because it got to the point where it could not be denied. You're guilty. Okay, you're guilty. So it's not like anything that you could ever say would ever mean anything to me. So it's stupid for people to think, oh, I'm going to be your friend. I will never be your fucking friend. Okay, I'm your acquaintance. Okay, you do have a responsibility to clear up your crap. That's the only thing you have a responsibility to do. The people from my past now understand that I am somebody who has always been intelligent and I've always been the best at what I've done. And I was attacked because of their evil. Okay, what's going on in the churches now? So the churches now understand that I have no interest in being a part of them. Good. Apparently, people are talking about my Swan Song Manifesto. That is belong to me. It is 100% mine. Okay. And like I said, I don't know if people are, I don't know. I do put my contact information in there because it is my publication. And I have not checked the email. I have not really checked any of my emails. I don't. Okay. And I know it's hard for me to deal with because I know that I've dealt with evil people. Okay. Yes, and it's funny. I'm sure Terry Collins. It's funny for her to for me to refer to her and truly believe of her as well as her family as wicked people. But that's exactly what they are. As well as the Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall. Like I saw some Jehovah's Witnesses in the park a couple of days ago, and I was like, "Ew! I cannot believe they're still practicing." And this is what I'm talking about: brainwashed people. Now, if I was a Jehovah's Witness, I would, the minute I found out that my whole congregation got caught up into this, I would leave. Bye. You know what I mean? But they say, whatever. Whatever. I don't think about religion anymore. Religion is no longer a part of my existence. It hasn't been in a long time, and I don't ever want to get sucked up into it. Okay. Um, Apparently people are interested in seeing things differently. That's nice. You know what I mean? But I'm more focused on just taking care and wrapping up my life. I do have to look for work. I now understand that work is no longer going to be that important of a part of my life. Okay, so now I'm throwing myself 100% into my hobbies. I'm already rearranging my room. As a matter of fact, I brought my sewing machine back in. Okay, and my computer for work is actually getting out of my room. I do not want it in my room. I don't want it in my room. Anything that's work related will be handled outside of my house, either in my back patio, in the library, or whatever. Okay, work life is now taking a back seat. You know what I mean? I will always perform well on my job. Okay, but I mean, I'm literally prioritizing my life. The intuitive message I'm getting is something about the death spells, people of the past, and that I was on the right track. Something about yeah, okay. So the people that ended up dying because I prayed for my protection, they deserve to die. They deserved it. I had God's favor the entire time. That is not me bragging. I would never want to get involved in some sort of religious war. Okay, but I am shocked that these people did what they did. You know what I mean? I would have never, attacked anybody based on race, religion, or any of that sort of stuff. Okay, and I'm going to tell you, it feels good to live with a clean conscience. And see, this is why I say, what makes my spirituality or my prayers highly vibrational is because I do so with a clean conscience. I know that I do not have a dirty conscience. That's what makes my spirituality clean. That is it right there. I would never do the things that most people do. Because there is such a thing called living an unclean life, and people do live unclean lives, and I don't do it. Okay, so anything else I want to say? I think that's pretty much it. I have my errands to run today. I got to grab something, and like I said, when it comes to white people, I am very cordial to white people. I feel as though I'm very polite to white people, okay? But, it is what it is. That's all on them. I will never take any responsibility for their problems. So, like I said, it's important for us to really study, are white people biologically evil? And this is funny. I remember mentioning this almost about 2 years ago. Okay, because I realized that they were causing problems, with my work and all this other stuff. And I remember saying, is there a possibility that white people are just evil? You know what I mean? This is interesting. So as we go forward, and I apparently the marriage rates are down. Okay, so this means that most people are not, getting married, having children. That's not saying it's not happening, because it does. Okay, people are getting married and having children, but the numbers are not. It's not becoming. It's not the norm like it used to be. Okay, so if we are running out of people, and apparently white people have had problems with fertility for quite a long time, then we'd have to do this through the cloning process. If they were going to increase their rates, they would have to do so most likely through the cloning process. Okay, so if they could be raised in a certain environment to where they actually receive, affection, understand morals, get trained in things like social etiquette and proper behavioral methods and mechanisms, will they have better enriched lives? Will they be the kind of people that could be trusted? Or are they just bad seeds? Okay, time will tell. Wrapping up this video. Take care.